text message arrived at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning. It came from my son's phone. "Mom, I have 4 hours. If you call police, I die. Check your email." I was pouring coffee when I saw it. Dropped the mug. Ceramic shattered across the kitchen floor. Jimmy was 8 years old, 3rd grade, should have been eating breakfast right now, complaining about his math homework. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial the school. The receptionist answered on the 3rd ring. "Riverside Elementary, how can I help you?" "This is Sarah Monroe. Is my son Jimmy in class?" "I need to know right now. Let me check the attendance. Hold, please." Every second felt like an hour. She came back. Jimmy was marked absent. His father called in sick for him at 7 this morning. My blood turned to ice. His father? Yes, David Monroe called about 20 minutes ago. David, my ex-husband, who was currently deep undercover with the FBI somewhere in Eastern Europe, who hadn't been in Rhode Island for 6 months. "Thank you," I whispered and hung up. I opened my email with trembling fingers. One new message. No sender name. Subject line, proof. The video file took forever to load. Then Jimmy appeared on screen, sitting in a concrete room. Hands zip-tied to a metal chair. His Spider-Man backpack on the floor beside him. Face streaked with tears but not hysterical, trying to be brave. A digital clock mounted on the wall behind him. 3 hours, 58 minutes, 23 seconds. As I watched, it changed to 3 hours, 58 minutes, 22 seconds. "My baby, my little boy." A voice spoke off camera, electronically distorted, unrecognizable. "You have until 10:47 a.m. The deadline is exact. If you contact police, he dies immediately. If you fail to complete the payment, he dies when the timer reaches 0. If you succeed, he goes free unharmed." Jimmy looked directly at the camera. "Mom, they said you'd know what to do. They said Dad did something bad to someone." The video cut to black. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee, trying to breathe, trying to think. 4 hours to save my son from someone who knew about David's work. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without hesitation. "Mrs. Monroe," the same distorted voice. "Before you consider doing something clever, you should know about Thomas Rivera." The name meant nothing to me. 4 months ago, Mr. Rivera received a deadline just like yours. His daughter Camilla was 7 years old. He called the FBI within the first hour. Very responsible, very by the book. I pressed the phone against my ear so hard it hurt. The FBI mobilized a rescue team, traced the location. Breached the building with 45 minutes left on the clock. They were very efficient. Pause. Camilla died during the breach, overdose. The timer had been connected to an automatic injection system. The moment law enforcement entered, it activated. "Would you like to see that video too?" "No, please, what do you want?" $10 million, transferred to an account I'll provide. You have 4 hours from the moment you received the text. That's 10:47 a.m. exactly. $10 million. I made $52,000 a year as an elementary school teacher. My savings account had $8,400. My mortgage was $300,000 underwater. I didn't have $10 million. I couldn't get $10 million in 4 hours. I couldn't get $10 million in 4 years. I don't have that kind of money. I'm a teacher. My ex-husband is the FBI agent, not me. I have nothing. Then you'll have to be creative. Bank loans, friends, family, liquidate assets. Sell your house. I don't care how you get it. But if the full amount isn't in the account by 10:47, Jimmy dies. And Mrs. Monroe, Thomas Rivera was a federal prosecutor making $300,000 a year. He couldn't get the money in time either. His daughter is dead because he failed. Don't fail. The call ended. I stared at my phone. 4 hours, 240 minutes, to get money I didn't have, to save my son, without calling the police who'd accidentally killed the last child. The walls felt like they were closing in. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Couldn't someone knocked on my door? I opened it without checking who it was. Jessica Morrison stood on my porch, brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. Wearing jeans and a cardigan, my colleague from Riverside Elementary. She was the school librarian. We'd been friends for 3 years. "Sarah, I was driving past and saw your car still here. You're usually at school by 7:15. Are you okay? You look." I burst into tears. Jessica stepped inside immediately, closing the door behind her. "What happened? Talk to me." I showed her the video, showed her the text, told her about the phone call. She watched Jimmy on the screen, watched the timer counting down. Her face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. "Okay, first thing. Do you believe this is real?" "Yes." Then we have 3 hours and 51 minutes. We need to move fast. What do you have for assets? $8,000 in savings. That's it. Everything else is debt. Jessica pulled out her phone. Started typing rapidly. What about David? Can you reach him? He's undercover, Europe somewhere. I don't even have a direct number, just his office handler. Extended family, parents, siblings. My parents are retired in Florida. Living on Social Security. David's parents passed away years ago. I have one sister in California. She's a waitress. Nobody in my family has this kind of money. Jessica kept typing. Bank loans. I tried calling on the way to the door. They said emergency loans take a minimum of 48 hours to process. Even then, maximum would be maybe 50,000 secured against the house. Credit cards, maxed out. Total limit across 3 cards is 32,000, already carrying 28,000 in debt. Jessica stopped typing, looked at me. Sarah, you can't get $10 million in 4 hours through traditional channels. Nobody can. That's the point. Then what do I do? Let him die. No, Jessica's voice was firm. We figure out what this person actually wants. Because if they wanted money, they'd have kidnapped someone who has money. You're a teacher. Jimmy's father is FBI, but you're divorced and he's overseas. This isn't about the money. Then what's it about? Revenge. Your ex-husband put someone away, someone who wants him to suffer. The money is just the torture method, making you scramble for something impossible while the clock runs out. I felt sick. So there's no way to win? I didn't say that. I said the money isn't the real test. We need to find Jimmy, fast, before the deadline. Forget the ransom, find your son. She was right, of course she was right. But 4 hours to search an entire state, without police help, Jessica must have seen the despair on my face. Sarah, listen to me, I believe you. I believe this is real, I'm going to help you. We're going to find Jimmy, but we need to move right now. Do you have any idea where he might be? I tried to think through the panic. The video showed a concrete room, bare walls. That digital clock, industrial-looking. Basement, warehouse, storage facility, could be any of those. Does Jimmy have anything on him we can track? Phone is off. What about a smartwatch, tablet? My brain finally clicked into gear. His smartwatch, the school requires all third graders to wear them. Safety policy after that incident last year. Can you track it? Yes, Family Tracker app. It's linked to my phone. I pulled up the app with shaking hands. Please work. Please work, please. A location popped up. Riverside Textile Mill, east side of Providence, abandoned for 10 years, scheduled for demolition next month. I've got him. He's at the old textile mill on Riverside. Jessica was already heading for the door. How far? 22 minutes in traffic. She checked her phone. It's 7:23 a.m. now. We can be there by 7:45. That's 3 hours before deadline. Let's go. I grabbed my keys and followed her out. My phone buzzed as we reached the car. New email. Subject, Task 1. I opened it while Jessica drove. You have the location. That was easy. Too easy. Here's the real first task. Before you go to that location, you need to prove you're serious about the money. Transfer whatever you have in savings to this account. All of it. Show me you're willing to sacrifice everything. You have until 8 a.m. That's 37 minutes. Transfer the money or the deadline moves up by 2 hours. The email included bank routing numbers. Jessica glanced over. What does it say? I read it aloud. She was quiet for a moment. Then, it's a compliance test. He wants to see if you'll follow instructions, wants to establish control. Should I do it? Do you have a choice? She was right. I didn't. I pulled up my bank app, logged in with trembling fingers. $8,417.63. Everything I had. My emergency fund, my safety net. The money I'd saved for Jimmy's summer camp, for car repairs, for the inevitable crisis you can't predict. I initiated the transfer. The app showed, processing, then transfer complete. Every dollar I had in the world was gone. Jessica reached over and squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, now let's get your son. We drove in silence for a while. I kept checking the time. 7:28 a.m., 3 hours, 19 minutes until deadline. Jessica broke the silence. Sarah, I need to tell you something. What? You never know who people really are. The people with the most often give it away the quietest. I looked at her, confused. What does that mean? It means you're not alone in this. Whatever happens, you're not alone. I didn't understand what she meant, but I didn't have time to ask. We were almost at the textile mill, and Jimmy was waiting, or so I thought. I had no idea how wrong I was about everything. The Riverside textile mill loomed ahead like a monument to decay. 4 stories of crumbling red brick, windows shattered or boarded up. Chain link fence half collapsed around the perimeter. Jessica parked near the main entrance. 7:38 a.m., 3 hours and 9 minutes until deadline. We got out. The morning air smelled like rust and old rain. "Stay close," Jessica said. "If Jimmy is in there, we need to be smart about this. No rushing in blind." The main door was unlocked, hanging crooked on broken hinges. Inside, the mill was a cavern of shadows and rusted machinery. Old textile equipment covered in decades of grime. Concrete floors stained with oil and God knows what else. "Jimmy," I called out. My voice echoed off the bare walls. Nothing. We searched the ground floor, room by room, checking behind equipment in corners anywhere a child could be hidden. Nothing. Up to the second floor, more of the same, empty rooms, broken windows, graffiti on the walls, no sign of Jimmy. Third floor, fourth floor, nothing, nothing, nothing. By the time we'd searched the entire building, it was 8:03 a.m. We'd wasted 25 minutes. I stood in the middle of the empty top floor, feeling the panic rise in my chest like floodwater. "He's not here." The tracker said he was here, but he's not here. Jessica pulled out her phone, opened the family tracker app on my account that I'd shared with her. She studied the screen carefully. "Sarah, look at the location history," she showed me. The smartwatch had been at this location for 3 days, 3 full days. Jimmy was kidnapped this morning. His backpack was in that video. His watch should have been with him. Unless... "He took the watch off Jimmy," I said slowly. "Planted it here days ago. He knew we'd track it, knew we'd waste time searching this place." Jessica nodded grimly. "It's a misdirection. He wanted you to burn time and energy on a dead end." I wanted to scream. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started typing frantically, searching for anything about Thomas Rivera, the name the kidnapper had mentioned, the other father who'd failed. Jessica saw what I was doing and joined in, her fingers flying across her screen. We found the story within minutes. Local prosecutor's daughter found dead after failed rescue attempt. The article was from 4 months ago. Thomas Rivera, federal prosecutor. His daughter Camilla, 7 years old, kidnapped on a Tuesday morning. Ransom demand, $10 million. Rivera attempted to handle it himself for 3 hours, then called the FBI tactical team located Camilla in a warehouse. Breached the location, found her dead, overdose. Automatic injection system triggered by law enforcement entry. The kidnapper was never caught. Rivera committed suicide 2 weeks later. I felt sick reading it. Jessica kept searching. "There's more, look." She showed me her screen. Another case. 6 months ago, Sofia Martinez, cardiac surgeon in Boston, her daughter Alina, age 9, kidnapped. Same demand, $10 million, 4-hour deadline. Martinez paid the ransom, full amount, liquidated investments to make it happen. But there was a final test. A device at the location required a code. The code was Alina's allergy medication name. Sofia Martinez couldn't remember it under pressure, entered the wrong medication. Device activated. Alina died. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. "There's another pattern here," Jessica said quietly. "Look at the dates. Rivera's daughter, 4 months ago. Martinez's daughter, 6 months ago." I kept scrolling, found a third case. David Kim, tech CEO in Seattle. His son Jason, age 8, kidnapped. 8 months ago, same demand. Same 4-hour deadline. Kim paid the ransom, had the money in cryptocurrency, transferred it immediately. But the final location had a test, a question only a parent should know. What was Jason's best friend's name? David Kim couldn't answer. He'd been traveling for work so much, he didn't know his son's current social circle. Entered a wrong name. Jason died. 3 cases, I whispered. 3 wealthy parents, all of them had the money. All of them failed anyway. Jessica's face had gone pale. "This isn't about money, it never was. The ransom is just the entry fee. The real test is something else." "But what's the test?" "Knowledge, connection. How well you actually know your child when you're under pressure." I thought about the names: federal prosecutor, cardiac surgeon, tech CEO, all high-earning professions, all demanding careers, all the kind of jobs where you sacrificed family time for success. "He's targeting successful parents," I said. "Parents who have money but maybe don't have time. He wants them to fail, wants to prove they don't really know their own children." Jessica nodded slowly. "And you're different, you're a teacher. You don't have money, but you have time with Jimmy, you know him. But then why demand the money from me at all? I can't pay it. Because he wants you to fail too, wants to prove that nobody wins, rich or poor. Everyone fails when you take away their child." My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, hands shaking. Mrs. Monroe, I see you found the textile mill. Took you 25 minutes to search the entire building. Very thorough. Very pointless, the distorted voice. Where is he? Where's Jimmy? You'll find out, but first I noticed you've been reading about Thomas Rivera, Sophia Martinez, David Kim. You found the pattern. Good. That saves me the explanation. You killed their children even when they paid. I killed their children because they didn't know them. Thomas Rivera's daughter loved reading. Her favorite book was Charlotte's Web. She read it 17 times. Rivera couldn't remember the title when I asked. Sophia Martinez's daughter was severely allergic to penicillin. Life-threatening. The mother, who'd spent 12 years in medical school, couldn't recall the name when it mattered. David Kim's son had a best friend named Tyler. They'd been in the same class for 3 years. Kim didn't know. You're insane. I'm honest. These parents claimed to love their children, claimed they'd do anything for them. But they didn't even know them. They knew their bank accounts, their stock portfolios, their business partners, but not their own kids. I know my son. We'll see. You have 2 hours and 54 minutes left. But I need to give you some bad news, Mrs. Monroe. My stomach dropped. What? You called your ex-husband earlier, left a voicemail. I heard you mention my name, Marco Craig. You also mentioned the FBI. I'd called David right after reading the text. Left a desperate voicemail on his work phone. How did the kidnapper know that? You're monitoring my phone. Of course I am. You broke the rules. You contacted FBI resources. That triggers a penalty. I didn't talk to anyone. It was just a voicemail. Rules are rules. Your deadline just moved up. New deadline, 8:47 a.m. You just lost 2 hours. The call ended. I stared at my phone in horror. Jessica grabbed my arm. What happened? He cut the deadline by 2 hours. I have 1 hour left. 60 minutes. 8:47 a.m. How? Why? I called David's work number. Left a voicemail. He's monitoring my phone. Heard me mention FBI. Jessica's expression hardened. Okay, we adapt. 1 hour is still time. We can do this. How? We don't know where he is. The smartwatch was fake. We have nothing. We have something. We have your knowledge of Jimmy. What else does he have on him? What else can we track? I tried to think, tried to push past the panic. His backpack. But that doesn't have a tracker. What about medical devices? Does Jimmy have any medical equipment? I stopped. His medical alert bracelet. What? Jimmy has severe asthma. Last year he had an attack at school. We had to rush him to the ER afterward. The doctor recommended a medical alert bracelet, just in case. Does it have a tracker? Yes, we signed up for Child Med Alert. It's a private monitoring service. The bracelet has GPS tracking. We pay $200 a year for it. Jessica's eyes lit up. Can you access the tracking? I pulled out my phone, opened the Child Med Alert app, login screen. I entered my username. Then stopped. What's wrong? I can't remember the password. David set up the account. He used one of his complicated security passwords. I never changed it. Try common passwords, birthdays, anniversaries. I tried Jimmy's birthday. Wrong. Tried our anniversary. Wrong. Tried David's birthday. Wrong. 3 failed attempts. The app locked me out. No. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Jessica grabbed my shoulders. Sarah, look at me. We can fix this. I know someone who can help. Who? My cousin, Amy. She's an ER nurse at Rhode Island Hospital. She worked the night Jimmy came in for his asthma attack last year. She's the one who recommended Child Med Alert. So she has access to the monitoring services back-end system. Medical personnel can access patient tracking in emergencies. It's how they locate people who have collapsed or gone missing. Will she do it? It's illegal, isn't it? It's a HIPAA violation. She could lose her nursing license, but Amy's a good person. When I explain that a child's life is at stake, she'll help. Jessica was already dialing. The phone rang twice. Jessica, it's 7 a.m. I'm about to go to sleep. Night shift just ended. Amy, I need your help. Emergency, life or death. The sleep cleared from Amy's voice immediately. What's wrong? Child Med Alert account. Sarah Monroe's son, Jimmy, 8 years old, severe asthma. I need his GPS location right now. That's a HIPAA violation. I could lose my license. A child is going to die in 53 minutes if we don't find him. Please. Silence on the line. Then give me 2 minutes. Jessica mouthed thank you to the phone. We waited. Every second felt eternal. The clock in my car dashboard showed 8:16 a.m., 31 minutes until deadline. Amy came back on the line. I've got the location. Westside Self-Storage. Unit 847. It's on the west end of Providence. About 20 minutes from your current location. Jessica was already starting the car. Thank you, Amy. I owe you. Just save that kid. Jessica hung up and punched the address into her phone's navigation. 22-minute drive with current traffic. I looked at the clock. 8:17 a.m., 30 minutes until deadline. 22 minutes to get there. That left us 8 minutes to find Jimmy, get him out, and disarm whatever device was waiting. 8 minutes, we'd barely have time to breathe. Jessica pulled onto the highway, driving faster than she should. "Call 911, she said. "Tell them there's a child hostage at that location." He said if you call police, he'd cut the deadline. He already did that. We're past that penalty. We need backup. Even if they arrive after the deadline, we need someone there. She was right. I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? There's a child being held hostage. Westside Self-Storage, Unit 847. Armed suspect. The deadline is 8:47 a.m. Please send help. Ma'am, what is your name and location? Sarah Monroe. I'm on Route 95 heading west. Please, you need to send officers now. The child is my son. There's a timer. When it hits 0, officers are being dispatched now. Stay on the line. I can't. I have to get there. I hung up before she could respond. Jessica glanced over. Did they believe you? I don't know. I hope so. We drove in tense silence. I kept checking the time. 8:23 a.m., 24 minutes to deadline. 8:26 a.m., 21 minutes. 8:29 a.m. 18 minutes. The navigation showed 12 minutes remaining. We'd get there with 6 minutes to spare. 6 minutes to find him. 6 minutes to solve whatever test was waiting. Jessica suddenly spoke. Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. What? 6 weeks ago, I found something online. Marco Craig's blog. He'd been posting threats against your ex-husband, against your family specifically. Talking about revenge for his brother. My blood went cold. What? Why didn't you tell me? I did tell someone. I sent screenshots to David's FBI office, to his handler. I tried to warn them. What did they say? They said David receives hundreds of threats monthly. Most are empty. Marco Craig seemed inactive. No recent criminal record. No violent history. They said they'd keep an eye on it but couldn't provide protective detail for every threat. So they dismissed it. Yes, and I should have pushed harder, should have told you directly, but I didn't want to scare you over nothing. And then nothing happened for 6 weeks, and I thought maybe they were right. Maybe it was just empty threats. Until this morning. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be angry. Wanted to scream at her for not warning me. But she'd tried. She'd gone through official channels, and they'd failed. Just like I was about to fail unless we got there in time. 8:34 a.m., 13 minutes to deadline. 7 minutes of driving left. The navigation announced, your destination is ahead on the right. Westside Self-Storage came into view. Rows of identical orange metal units, chain-link fence, security gate standing open. Jessica parked near the entrance. 8:39 a.m., 8 minutes until deadline. We got out and started running. Unit numbers painted on each door. 200 block, 400 block, 600 block, finally. 800 block, Unit 847, orange metal door with a heavy padlock. The padlock had a digital keypad, 4 digits required. 8:40 a.m., 7 minutes until deadline. I stared at the keypad. My mind went blank. What code? What could it possibly be? Jessica pulled out her phone. Think Sarah, 4 digits. What would Marco use? Something related to the case, to his brother. I tried to remember everything I'd read in the car. Marco Craig's brother. Convicted by David. Sent to prison. What was the case number? I couldn't remember. Try Jimmy's birthday, Jessica said. Month and day 0829. I entered 0829. The keypad flashed red, incorrect. Try the year, 2017. I entered. 2017. Red flash, incorrect. 8:41 a.m., 6 minutes until deadline. I tried to think, tried to remember anything about David's cases. Then it hit me, the 3829 cell. That's what the FBI had called Marco's brother's money laundering operation. Operation 3829. David had mentioned it once in passing years ago. I entered 3829. The keypad flashed green. The lock clicked open. 8:42 a.m., 5 minutes until deadline. I yanked the lock off and pulled up the metal door. Inside the storage unit, in the dim light from outside, I could see him, Jimmy, my son, alive, zip-tied to a metal folding chair. Crying, and on the floor in front of him, a device with a digital display. 4 minutes, 51 seconds, 4, 50, 4, 49. The clock was counting down, and we had no idea how to stop it. I ran to Jimmy and dropped to my knees beside him. Baby, I'm here, you're okay. He was sobbing, his face red and streaked with tears. Mom, I'm sorry. I tried to be brave, but I'm scared and the timer keeps going and SHH, it's okay. We're going to get you out. Jessica was already working on the zip ties with her car keys, trying to pry them apart. I looked at the device on the floor. 4 minutes, 37 seconds. It was about the size of a shoebox, black plastic casing. The digital display on top showing the countdown in red LED numbers. Below the display, a keypad. 6 digits required. A piece of paper was taped to the top of the device. Handwritten message in black marker. Badge number proves you knew the man who destroyed my family. Rich parents knew their portfolios. Do you know his sacrifice? Badge number. David's FBI badge number. I stared at the message, my mind racing. 4 minutes, 21 seconds. Sarah, what does it want? Jessica asked, still working on the zip ties. David's badge number, 6 digits. Do you know it? No, I never asked. I never wanted to know anything about his FBI work. That had been the problem in our marriage. David's job consumed him. Late nights, dangerous cases. Secrets he couldn't share, I'd resented it. Resented him for choosing the badge over our family, so I'd shut it out, refused to engage with that part of his life. And now my son was going to die because of it. 4 minutes. 3 seconds, Jessica finally broke through one of the zip ties. Jimmy's right hand came free. She started working on the left. Think, Sarah, when did the trial end? When was David's brother convicted? August 29th, 2017. That's Jimmy's birthday. I know. David missed the birth. He was in court for the verdict. That's why I filed for divorce 6 months later. Jessica looked at me. Would David memorialize that date somehow? What do you mean? Parents do that. They mark important dates. Maybe he requested a custom badge number. 3 minutes, 41 seconds. I tried to think. Had David ever mentioned his badge number? Had I ever seen it written down? Wait, last year. I was looking for Jimmy's birth certificate in David's old desk drawer. The one he'd left behind when he moved out. I'd found papers, work documents he'd forgotten to take. One of them was a form, a request form for something. I'd barely glanced at it, tossed it back in the drawer, but I remembered seeing numbers, a 6-digit number. What was it? 3 minutes, 18 seconds. Jessica got the second zip tie off. Jimmy was free. He threw his arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. We need to get him out, Jessica said. Grab him and run. The device might be rigged. If we leave, it could still detonate. Could bring down this whole storage facility. Then what do we do? I looked at the keypad again. 6 digits, David's badge number, August 29th, Jimmy's birthday, the day David missed to finish a trial. Would he really use that date? 3 minutes, 0 seconds. I tried to remember the form, the numbers I'd seen. It started with 08, I was almost certain. 08 for August. Then what? 29 for the day, 17 for the year. 082917, that would be Jimmy's birthday. August 29th, 2017. But would David really use the date he'd missed his son's birth as his badge number? 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Jessica was watching me. Sarah, if you're going to try, you need to do it now. My hands were shaking. I reached for the keypad, thought about what Jessica had said. Parents mark important dates. David had missed Jimmy's birth. He'd chosen the trial, the verdict, the badge, but maybe that's exactly why he'd used the date. Maybe it was his way of carrying Jimmy with him, of remembering what he'd sacrificed, of trying to make it mean something. 2 minutes, 27 seconds. I entered the numbers slowly. 082917. I pressed enter. The device beeped twice. The display changed. Disarmed flashed across the screen in green letters. Then the numbers disappeared entirely. The countdown stopped. 8:45 a.m. and 17 seconds. 1 minute and 43 seconds before deadline. Jimmy was safe. I pulled him close, both of us crying now. Jessica exhaled shakily. Thank God, thank God. My phone buzzed, bank alert. I pulled it out, confused. $10 million and 0 cents deposited. J. Morrison Trust, CLEARED. I stared at the screen. $10 million from J. Morrison Trust. J. Morrison, Jessica Morrison. I looked up at her. She was standing near the storage unit door, her phone in her hand, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Jessica, what is this? What it looks like. You deposited $10 million into my account? Yes. How? You're a school librarian. Where would you get? My family has money, a lot of money. The Morrison Trust is worth about $127 million. My mouth fell open. You're rich. Very. My great-grandfather started a shipping company. It went well. I inherited when I turned 21. But you work at an elementary school library. Because I want to, because I like it. Because money doesn't define who I am. I couldn't process this. Jimmy was safe. The device was disarmed, and my friend had just revealed she was a multimillionaire who'd casually transferred $10 million to save my son. How did you? This morning, 3 hours ago. I started liquidating stock the moment you showed me that video. It took until 8:45 to clear the full amount, but it's there now. The kidnapper will check the account. He'll see you paid. That was the rule, 10 million by the deadline. Before I could respond, the door to the storage unit next to ours opened. Unit 848. A man stepped out, mid-30s, gaunt face, dark circles under his eyes. Wearing jeans and a black jacket, he was holding a gun pointed at us. "You solved it," he said. His voice was normal, no distortion, just flat, empty. Marco Craig. I pushed Jimmy behind me instinctively. Jessica stepped between us and the gun. Marco looked at me. "You knew your son's birthday. You knew your husband's badge number. The hedge fund manager couldn't remember his son's middle name. The surgeon forgot her daughter's favorite color. The CEO didn't know his son's best friend." His voice cracked. "You, a teacher with nothing, knew everything. Let us go. The device is disarmed. You got your money. It's over. But your friend paid the ransom. That was the rule. 10 million or he dies." He turned the gun toward Jessica. "She cheated. You were supposed to fail, supposed to understand what it's like to have nothing. No money, no options, no way to save someone you love." Jessica's voice was steady. "She passed your test. The money doesn't prove love. She proved it without knowing I'd pay. My brother had no money, no connections. Your husband railroaded him. My brother died in prison believing no one cared. Your brother laundered $40 million for cartels," Jessica said quietly. "He wasn't innocent. He was to me." Marco's hand was shaking, the gun wavering. "Sarah benefited from her husband's work, from the cases he won, the promotions he got. She owes the debt." I could see his finger tightening on the trigger. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. Jessica's body tensing, Jimmy crying behind me, Marco's eyes empty, broken, already gone. Jessica launched herself at him. The gun went off. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Jessica stumbled backward, a red bloom spreading across her chest just below her left shoulder. She fell, and then the storage facility erupted with noise. "Police, hands up, drop the weapon." Officers poured in from both sides. 4 of them, 6, tactical gear, weapons drawn. Marco dropped the gun immediately, put his hands up. "On the ground now," he complied, dropped to his knees, then his stomach. They swarmed him, handcuffs, shouting orders. I was already on the ground beside Jessica. She was conscious, breathing, but the blood was spreading fast. Jessica, stay with me." She looked up at me, her face pale. "Jimmy, safe? Yes, he's safe. Worth it. Don't talk. Save your strength." One of the officers was beside us now, speaking into his radio. "We need an ambulance. Gunshot wound. Female, approximately 30 years old, conscious but bleeding heavily." Another officer was with Jimmy, checking him over, asking if he was hurt. Jimmy was crying, reaching for me. Mom, is Jessica okay?" "She's going to be fine," I said, not knowing if it was true. Jessica grabbed my hand. Her grip was weak. "Check your account. The letter will hold. Get Jimmy somewhere safe." "What letter?" But her eyes were closing. The officer pushed me aside gently. "Ma'am, let us work." 2 paramedics arrived. Started working on Jessica immediately. Pressure on the wound, IV line, rapid instructions I couldn't follow. They loaded her onto a stretcher, carried her out. I stood there, covered in her blood, holding Jimmy, watching them take away the friend who'd just saved my son's life. The officer who'd been with Jimmy approached me. "Mrs. Monroe, I'm Sergeant Patterson. Your son is going to be okay. We need to take him to the hospital. Get him checked out. You should come too. What about Jessica?" "The paramedics are doing everything they can. She's in good hands." I nodded numbly. "Let them guide us out of the storage unit." Outside, the facility was swarming with police vehicles. Ambulances, flashing lights. I checked my phone. 8:46 a.m. and 28 seconds. 32 seconds after the deadline. Jimmy was safe. The device was disarmed. Marco was in custody, but Jessica was dying. And I still didn't understand what she'd meant about a letter, or how she'd known to transfer the money before I'd even asked, or why she'd thrown herself in front of that gun. "You never know who people really are," she'd said that morning. "The people with the most often give it away the quietest." I held Jimmy close as they loaded us into an ambulance, watched the paramedics working on Jessica in the ambulance ahead of us, and prayed that the woman who'd saved my son wouldn't die proving that money meant nothing compared to love. The ambulance doors closed. We pulled away from Westside Self-Storage. The digital clock on the ambulance wall showed 8:47 a.m. exactly. Deadline. We'd beaten it by 1 minute and 43 seconds, but the cost was written in blood on my hands. And I had no idea if Jessica would survive long enough for me to say thank you. The ambulance ride to Rhode Island Hospital took 11 minutes. Every second felt like an hour. Jimmy sat beside me, wrapped in a blanket the paramedics had given him, still crying softly, still trembling. I kept my arm around him, trying to be strong, trying not to think about Jessica bleeding out in the ambulance ahead of us. The paramedic across from us, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, was checking Jimmy's vital signs. Heart rate's elevated, but that's expected. Blood pressure is good. Any pain anywhere, Jimmy? He shook his head. Did they hurt you? While you were being held? Another head shake. He just kept me in that chair, Jimmy whispered. Said I had to be quiet, said if I screamed, the timer would go faster. The paramedic nodded gently. You were very brave. You're safe now. We arrived at the hospital at 8:58 a.m. They rushed Jessica inside immediately, straight to trauma. Jimmy and I were taken to a different area, pediatric emergency. A doctor examined Jimmy thoroughly, checked for injuries, asked questions about what happened. Jimmy told the story in a small, shaking voice. He'd been walking to school that morning, 3 blocks from our house. A man in a van pulled up, asked if he was Jimmy Monroe. Jimmy said yes. The man showed him a picture. It was David, my ex-husband, in his FBI uniform. The man said David had sent him, said there was an emergency, said Jimmy needed to come right away. Jimmy got in the van. He realized something was wrong when they didn't drive toward the FBI office. When the man pulled out zip ties, by then it was too late. The doctor listened, made notes. Her expression was carefully neutral. Has he eaten anything? She asked me. I don't know. Jimmy shook his head. He gave me water, that's all. Okay, we're going to get you some food, and we're going to keep you here for observation for a few hours. Make sure there are no injuries we missed. Is that okay? Jimmy looked at me. I nodded. A nurse brought crackers and juice. Jimmy ate slowly, mechanically. I sat beside him, holding his hand. A police detective arrived around 9:30. Detective Lisa Warren, early 40s, dark hair pulled back, shrewd eyes. Mrs. Monroe, I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you some questions about what happened this morning. I told her everything. The text message, the video, the ransom demand, the previous victims, the storage facility. She took notes, asked clarifying questions. And Jessica Morrison, she's your colleague? Yes, school librarian at Riverside Elementary. She transferred $10 million to your account this morning. Yes. Where did she get that kind of money? Family trust. She inherited it. I didn't know about it until today. Detective Warren raised an eyebrow. She never mentioned being wealthy. Never. She lives modestly, drives an old car, works a regular job. I had no idea. And she threw herself in front of Marco Craig's gun to protect you? Yes. The detective wrote something down. That's quite a friend. Yes, I said quietly. It is. Detective Warren closed her notebook. Marco Craig is in custody. He's being charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder for the previous children, 1 count of attempted murder for your son, and depending on whether Miss Morrison survives, either attempted murder or felony murder for her shooting. The other children. The previous victims, did he kill them all himself? Yes, Ethan Park, Sophia Martinez's daughter Alina, David Kim's son Jason, and 1 more we just learned about from his confession, a girl named Lily Monroe. No relation to you. That was 9 months ago, before he refined his pattern. 4 children dead because their parents didn't know them well enough under pressure. Why did he target me? I asked. If the test is about knowing your child, why choose a teacher? Why not another wealthy parent? He wanted to see if someone without money would fail too. He wanted to prove that everyone fails when the stakes are high enough. You were supposed to be the control group, the ordinary person who proved his point. But I didn't fail. No, you succeeded, and I think that broke something in him. He'd convinced himself that everyone would fail, that his brother's death proved the world was fundamentally unjust. You proved him wrong. She stood. We'll need a full statement from you later, but for now, rest, be with your son. We'll post an officer outside your room. Just in case what? Marco Craig acted alone as far as we can tell, but until we're certain we're taking precautions. She left. I sat with Jimmy in the quiet hospital room. He'd finally stopped crying. Was lying in the bed now, eyes half closed, exhausted. Mom, yeah, baby, is Jessica going to die? I don't know. She saved us. I know. Why did she have all that money if she never told anyone? I don't know that either. Jimmy was quiet for a moment. If she dies, is it my fault? No, absolutely not. None of this is your fault. But if I hadn't gotten in that van, Jimmy, listen to me. You were a child who was tricked by an adult. Nothing that happened today is your fault. Not one single thing. Do you understand? He nodded, but I could see he didn't quite believe it. That guilt would take time to heal, if it ever did. Around 11 a.m., a nurse came to check on Jimmy. She saw me sitting there, still wearing clothes stained with Jessica's blood. "Mrs. Monroe, we have scrubs you can change into, and a shower if you'd like." I looked down at myself. I'd forgotten about the blood. "I can't leave him. I'll stay with him," the nurse said gently. "Take 15 minutes, clean up, you'll feel better." I didn't want to leave Jimmy, but she was right. I took the scrubs and went to the bathroom down the hall. Washed Jessica's blood off my hands. My arms, out of my hair, changed into the clean scrubs, stared at myself in the mirror. I looked like I'd aged 10 years in one morning. When I came back, Jimmy was asleep. The nurse smiled. "He's exhausted, let him rest." I sat in the chair beside his bed, pulled out my phone, tried calling David again. Still voicemail. I left another message. "David, it's Sarah. Jimmy is safe. He's at Rhode Island Hospital. Call me when you get this." Then I opened my bank app. $10 million, actually sitting in my account from the J. Morrison Trust. I searched for Jessica's name online, found articles I'd never seen before. Morrison Family Trust donates $5 million to Children's Hospital. Anonymous donor revealed. Jessica Morrison funds new library wing at Riverside Elementary. Local philanthropist Jessica Morrison continues legacy of quiet giving. She donated over $40 million in the last decade, always anonymously or quietly. Children's causes, education, medical research, and she'd never said a word about any of it. She drove a 10-year-old sedan, lived in a modest apartment, worked a job that paid $42,000 a year because she wanted to, because money didn't define her. I thought about how I'd complained about bills around her, about student loans, about how tight money was, and she'd never once made me feel small for it, never offered to help because she knew it would embarrass me, until today, until it was life or death. A doctor appeared in the doorway. Older man wearing surgical scrubs. "Mrs. Monroe," I stood immediately. "Is Jessica? She's out of surgery." The bullet entered just below her left clavicle, missed the major arteries by millimeters. "She lost a lot of blood, but we were able to stabilize her. She's in critical condition, but the prognosis is good. She's going to live, we believe so. The next 24 hours are critical, but if there are no complications, she should recover fully." I sat down hard, overwhelmed with relief. "Can I see her?" "Not yet, she's in recovery. We'll let you know when she's moved to ICU. Family only, though." "I'm not family." "Are you listed as her emergency contact?" "I don't think so." He checked his tablet. "Actually, you are, updated 3 days ago. Sarah Monroe, that's you?" "Yes, but I didn't, she never told me." "Well, you're listed, so you can see her once she's stable, probably a few hours." He left 3 days ago. Jessica had made me her emergency contact 3 days ago, before Jimmy was kidnapped, before any of this started. How had she known? I pulled out my phone and searched for Marco Craig's name, found his blog. The one Jessica had mentioned. It had been taken down, but archived versions existed. I read through his posts, rants about injustice, about his brother's conviction, about how the rich and powerful destroyed ordinary people and got away with it. And then 6 weeks ago, a post that made my blood run cold. FBI agent David Monroe. "I'm coming for you. I'm coming for your family. You destroyed mine. I'll destroy yours. You'll watch helpless as I take everything from you. And you'll finally understand." The post had been reported, taken down within hours, but Jessica had seen it, had taken screenshots, had sent them to David's office. And when they dismissed it, she'd started preparing. She'd liquidated enough assets to have $10 million ready. She'd updated her will. She'd made me her emergency contact. She'd known Marco Craig was going to come for my family, and she'd prepared to save us, even if it cost her everything. Around 2 p.m., a nurse came to tell me Jessica was being moved to ICU. I could see her for 10 minutes. I left Jimmy with a hospital social worker and followed the nurse upstairs. Jessica's room was dim, quiet except for the beeping monitors. She was unconscious, pale, tubes and wires everywhere, but alive. I sat in the chair beside her bed. "I don't know if you can hear me," I said quietly, "but thank you. Thank you for saving my son. Thank you for saving me. I don't understand why you did it. I don't understand how you knew to prepare, but thank you." Her hand was lying on top of the blanket. I took it gently. "You said people with the most give it away the quietest. I didn't understand what you meant, but I do now. You had everything, and you gave it all away, not for recognition, not for gratitude, just because you could. Just because it was right. I squeezed her hand. I'm going to make sure Jimmy knows what you did. I'm going to make sure everyone knows. You don't get to be anonymous anymore. You saved my son's life. That deserves to be known. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Monroe, I'm sorry, but time's up. I stood. Will she wake up soon? Hard to say, could be hours, could be tomorrow. Her body needs to heal. I nodded. Looked at Jessica one more time, then left. Back downstairs, Jimmy was awake. The social worker had brought him a handheld game to play with. He looked up when I entered. Is Jessica okay? She's going to be okay. She's strong. She'll pull through. Can I see her? Not yet, maybe tomorrow when she wakes up. Jimmy went back to his game. I sat beside him. My phone buzzed. David. Finally, I answered immediately. David. Sarah. Jesus Christ, I just got your messages. Is Jimmy? He's fine. He's safe. We're at Rhode Island Hospital. What happened? Your voicemail said. I told him everything. He listened in silence. When I finished, he said quietly, Marco Craig, son of a bitch. I knew he was bitter about his brother's conviction, but I never thought. Your office knew he was making threats. They didn't do anything. We get hundreds of threats, Sarah. Most of them are empty. This one wasn't. I know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. His voice cracked. I'm flying back tonight. I'll be there by tomorrow morning. Can you stay at the hospital until then? Yes. How is Jimmy? Really? Traumatized, but alive. Thanks to Jessica Morrison. Your friend from school? My friend who apparently inherited $127 million and never told anyone. My friend who transferred $10 million to pay the ransom. My friend who took a bullet meant for me. David was quiet. She did that? Yes. I need to thank her. Get in line. We hung up. I sat with Jimmy until evening. They brought us dinner, hospital food, but Jimmy ate it. His color was coming back. His hands had stopped shaking. He was going to be okay. Eventually, around 7 p.m., Detective Warren returned. Mrs. Monroe, I have an update. Marco Craig has been formally charged. He's confessed to everything. The 4 previous murders, your son's kidnapping. He's cooperating fully. Why? Because he wants the story told. He wants people to know why he did it. He wants the world to understand his brother was innocent. Was he innocent? Detective Warren shook her head. No, Alex Craig was guilty. The evidence was solid. David Monroe's conviction was legitimate, but Marco has convinced himself otherwise. He's constructed an entire alternate reality where his brother was railroaded. So 4 children died for a lie. Yes, she handed me a folder. These are victim assistance resources, counseling, support groups. Financial assistance if needed. I know you've been through trauma. You and Jimmy both. Please use these resources. I took the folder. Thank you. After she left, a nurse came in. Mrs. Monroe, we're going to keep Jimmy overnight for observation. You can stay with him. There's a cot we can bring in. Thank you. That night, I lay on the cot beside Jimmy's hospital bed, listened to him breathing, watched the monitors tracking his heartbeat, and thought about everything that had happened in the last 14 hours. A lifetime compressed into one morning. Jimmy was alive because I'd known his birthday, because I'd remembered David's case number, because I'd figured out the badge number. But more than that, Jimmy was alive because Jessica Morrison had prepared for something she'd seen coming, had liquidated $10 million, had thrown herself between my son and a bullet, had given everything. I pulled out my phone, looked at the bank balance again. $10 million, money I was supposed to use to pay a ransom, money that was now just sitting in my account. What was I supposed to do with it? I fell asleep thinking about that question, and dreaming about concrete rooms and countdown timers and Jessica's blood on my hands. When I woke up at 6 a.m. the next morning, Jimmy was still sleeping peacefully, and my phone had a new email from the J. Morrison Trust Legal Team. Subject, instructions from Miss Morrison. I opened it with shaking hands and started reading the letter that would change everything. The email was formal, professional, sterile legal language, but the attachment made my hands shake. Last will and testament of Jessica Ann Morrison, updated 3 days prior. I opened the PDF, started reading. To Sarah Monroe, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I hope I'm just injured and recovering. But if I'm not, I need you to know some things. 6 weeks ago, I found Marco Craig's blog, his threats against your family. I sent them to David's FBI office. They dismissed them as low priority. Too many threats to follow up on all of them. I understand their reasoning, but I couldn't ignore it. I've seen this pattern before. Angry men who lose someone, who blame the system, who decide to punish innocent people for their pain. My father was murdered by someone like that when I was 12, a man whose son my father had prosecuted. The man waited 3 years. Then shot my father in a parking lot, so I know how these things go. I started preparing, liquidating assets slowly so I'd have cash available, 10 million specifically, the amount Marco demanded from his previous victims. I did the research, I found the pattern. I updated my will 3 days ago because I knew time was running out. Marco's posts were escalating, his anger was building, it was going to happen soon. I made you my emergency contact because if something happened, I wanted you to have control. Not distant cousins I haven't spoken to in years. The $10 million is yours now, not as repayment, not as charity, as a tool. Use it to help other families like yours, families caught in impossible situations, families who need someone to believe them when everyone else thinks they're crazy. I've spent 20 years giving money away quietly, donations to causes. Scholarships, medical bills for strangers. It was meaningful, but it was also distant, safe. What happened yesterday wasn't safe, but it was the most meaningful thing I've ever done with my wealth. I don't regret it, even if I die. Even if you're reading this at my funeral, I don't regret choosing you and Jimmy over my own safety. Money is just paper, numbers in an account. It means nothing unless you spend it on something that matters. You and Jimmy matter. Please take the money. Please use it to help others. Please don't let what happened to your family happen to anyone else if you can prevent it. And please tell Jimmy that I'm sorry I couldn't be there to watch him grow up. But I'm not sorry I saved his life. That was worth everything. Jessica, I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Jimmy stirred in his bed, opened his eyes. Mom. Why are you crying? Come here. He climbed out of bed and into my arms. I held him close and told him about Jessica's letter, about how she'd known something bad was coming, about how she'd prepared to save us, about how she'd given us everything. Jimmy was quiet for a long time. Then he said she knew she might die and she did it anyway. Yes, that's what heroes do in stories. Yes, is she a hero? The biggest hero I've ever known. Around 8 a.m., a nurse came in. Mrs. Monroe. Miss Morrison is awake. She's asking for you. I left Jimmy with the nurse and went upstairs. Jessica's ICU room looked the same, but her eyes were open now, tired, pale, but alive. Sarah, she whispered. I sat beside her bed. You're awake. Unfortunately, everything hurts. You took a bullet for me. I know, stupid. Brave, same thing sometimes. I took her hand carefully, avoiding the IV line. I read your letter, the one from your lawyers. Good. I was worried they'd wait until I died to send it. You're not going to die. The doctors seem to agree. Lucky me. Jessica, I can't accept $10 million. You already did. It's in your account. It's not going anywhere. But it's yours, your family's legacy. My family's legacy is money made from shipping contracts a century ago. It's not meaningful. What you do with it will be meaningful. I don't know what to do with that kind of money. Jessica closed her eyes. Took a slow breath. Speaking was clearly exhausting her. Help families when their children are taken, when the system fails them, when they have nowhere to turn. Be what I was for you. Be prepared when no one else believes them. That's a full-time job. Good, you need a new career anyway. I don't think you can go back to teaching after this. She was right. The thought of standing in front of a classroom, pretending everything was normal. After what I'd been through, I couldn't do it. How did you know? I asked. How did you know to prepare 3 days ago specifically? Marco's blog posts changed tone, more specific, more urgent. I could feel something shifting, so I liquidated everything, got the cash ready, updated my will, made sure if something happened, you'd be protected. You barely know me. We've been friends for 3 years, but we're not that close. Why risk everything for me? Jessica opened her eyes, looked at me directly. My father died because no one took the threat seriously, because the system said there were too many threats to follow them all, because one man fell through the cracks. I'm sorry. I was 12. I watched my mother try to rebuild our lives, try to keep going, but she never recovered. She died 5 years later. Doctors said it was cancer, but I think it was grief. Jessica. I inherited everything at 21. Cousin managed the trust until then. Suddenly I had more money than I could ever spend, and I realized something. Money didn't save my father. Money didn't save my mother. Money is worthless when it matters most. She squeezed my hand weakly. But yesterday it mattered. Yesterday money bought your son's life. Not because Marco actually cared about the payment, but because it bought me credibility. It made me a player in his game, and that gave me the chance to step between you and that gun. You almost died, but I didn't. And Jimmy is alive. That's the equation. That's what money is actually for. A doctor appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry, but Miss Morrison needs to rest now. I nodded, stood. I'll come back later. Bring Jimmy, Jessica said. I want to see him, want to know he's really okay. I will. I left her room, went back downstairs to Jimmy. David was there, my ex-husband, looking exhausted, still wearing his travel clothes. He'd taken the first flight he could get. He was sitting beside Jimmy's bed. They were talking quietly. Jimmy saw me and smiled. Dad's here. I see that. David stood, looked at me. Sarah, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I brought this to our family. You did your job. You convicted a criminal. What happened after that isn't your fault. Marco Craig targeted Jimmy because of me. Marco Craig was a broken man who chose violence. That's on him, not you. David ran a hand through his hair. The office is opening a full investigation. Why the threat wasn't taken seriously. Why protective measures weren't implemented. Heads are going to roll. Good. And I'm transferring, out of undercover work, taking a training position. Desk job, I'll be home every night. That's good too. We stood there awkwardly, so much history between us, so much pain. The divorce had been bitter, but we'd both nearly lost our son yesterday. That changed things. David, I need to tell you something about your badge number. What about it? You used Jimmy's birthday, August 29th, 2017. He looked surprised. How did you know that? I found the request form once. In your old desk. I didn't think much of it at the time, but yesterday it saved Jimmy's life. The final code was your badge number. David sat down slowly. I requested that number the day Jimmy was born, the day I missed his birth for that trial. I thought if I carried his birthday with me, it would mean I wasn't completely failing as a father. That even when I was at work, part of me was still with him. It worked. That number saved his life and destroyed our marriage. The number didn't destroy our marriage. Your choices did. My choices did. We were both at fault. Jimmy was watching us. Are you guys going to fight? No, I said. We're not going to fight. David looked at our son. Jimmy, I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you yesterday. I'm sorry I was overseas. I'm sorry I've missed so much of your life. It's okay, Dad. It's not okay, but I'm going to do better, I promise. Jimmy nodded. The hospital's social worker appeared in the doorway. Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, sorry to interrupt, but Detective Warren needs to speak with you both. It's about Marco Craig's sentencing timeline. We followed her to a consultation room down the hall. Detective Warren was waiting with another detective. Older man, gray hair. Serious expression. Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, this is Detective Frank Morrison. He's been working the previous kidnapping cases. No relation to Jessica. Common name. Detective Morrison spoke. Marco Craig is pleading guilty to all charges. 4 counts first-degree murder. 1 count attempted murder for Jimmy. 1 count felony murder for the shooting of Jessica Morrison. He'll face life in prison without possibility of parole. Good, David said. But there's something else you should know. In his confession, Marco revealed details about his brother's case. The original case that started all of this. David stiffened. What details? He claims you fabricated evidence, that Alex Craig was innocent, that the conviction was a frame job. That's bullshit. The evidence was solid, DNA. Witness testimony, financial records, it was airtight. We've reopened the case file to review, just to be thorough. The conviction will stand, but we need to investigate the allegations. Fine, investigate. You'll find everything was legitimate. Detective Warren interjected. Marco Craig is a grieving brother who's constructed a fantasy where his sibling was innocent. It's textbook. Don't take it personally, Agent Monroe. But I could see David taking it personally. The meeting ended. We went back to Jimmy's room. Around noon, they discharged Jimmy, medical clearance, no injuries. Psychologically traumatized, but that would require long-term therapy, not hospitalization. David drove us home. Our house looked the same, but it felt different. Smaller, more fragile. This place where I'd thought we were safe. Where I'd thought the world couldn't touch us. Marco Craig had proven that wrong. Jimmy went straight to his room, didn't want to talk, just wanted to be alone. David and I stood in the kitchen. I'll stay tonight, he said, on the couch. Just in case Jimmy needs me. Okay. And Sarah, thank you for saving him, for being smart enough to figure out the codes, for being strong enough to keep going when anyone else would have collapsed. I had help. Jessica did most of the work. She transferred $10 million. Yes, that's insane. That's friendship. David shook his head. I need to thank her properly. Is she still in the hospital? I see you. She's awake but not taking many visitors. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow, then. He went to check on Jimmy. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd been pouring coffee 14 hours ago when this all started. 14 hours. That's all it had been. It felt like a lifetime. My phone buzzed. Email from the Morrison Trust legal team again. Subject, additional information, Miss Morrison's instructions. I opened it. Another attachment. This one was a document titled, Beat the Clock Organizational Framework. I started reading. Jessica had written this, days ago, a complete plan for a nonprofit organization. Rapid response intervention for families facing ransom situations. 24-hour hotline, trained crisis counselors, connections to law enforcement, private investigators on retainer, most importantly, emergency funding. Immediate access to capital for families who needed to pay ransoms while working to locate their children. The document was 40 pages long, detailed, professional, thorough. She'd planned everything, as if she'd known I'd need this, known I'd want to turn my trauma into something meaningful. The final page had a handwritten note scanned in. Sarah, I know you. Better than you think. I know you won't just take the money and move on. You'll want to help others. So here's the framework. Use it or don't. Change it if you want. But please don't let what happened to Jimmy happen to other children if you can prevent it. You have the resources now. You have the knowledge. You have the motivation. Be the person who picks up the phone at 3 a.m. when someone's child is missing and the police say there's nothing they can do yet. Be the person who believes them. Be the person who acts. That's all I ever tried to be with my money. Now it's your turn. Jay, I sat there reading until Jimmy came out of his room an hour later. Mom, I'm hungry. Let me make you something. I made grilled cheese sandwiches, his favorite. We ate together at the kitchen table. David joined us, and for a few minutes we almost felt like a normal family again. Even though nothing would ever be normal after this. Even though we were all carrying wounds that would take years to heal. Even though Jessica was lying in a hospital bed because she'd taken a bullet meant for me. We were alive. We were together, and we had a chance to make something meaningful out of this nightmare. That evening, after David had fallen asleep on the couch and Jimmy was in bed, I sat at my computer, opened a new document, and started writing. Beat the Clock mission statement. We exist for the families who fall through the cracks, for the parents who are told their case isn't a priority, for the children who are taken while the system moves too slowly. We exist to act when every second counts. We exist because money should save lives when nothing else can. We exist because Jessica Morrison believed one person can make a difference. And we exist because Jimmy Monroe is alive and other children deserve the same chance. I wrote until 2 a.m. planning, organizing, building something from the ashes of the worst day of my life. When I finally went to bed, I dreamed about countdown timers again. But this time I was the one stopping them. This time I was the one saving the children. This time money meant something. And Jessica Morrison's legacy would be written in lives saved, not dollars spent. That was worth everything. 6 months later, I stood in front of the mirror in my new office, adjusting my collar. The office wasn't fancy. Small suite in downtown Providence, 2 rooms and a reception area, but it was mine. The sign on the door read, Beat the Clock Crisis Intervention Services. Jimmy was in therapy twice a week, getting better slowly. The nightmares had decreased from every night to maybe twice a week. He could talk about that day now without crying. That was progress. He'd started 4th grade at a new school. Fresh start. New friends who didn't know his story. David had transferred to the FBI training division like he'd promised. Home every night by 6 p.m. weekends off. We weren't back together, but we were trying. Family therapy every Thursday. Learning to talk to each other again. Learning to be parents together instead of adversaries. Jessica had been released from the hospital after 2 weeks. The bullet had missed everything vital by millimeters. Luck or divine intervention, depending on who you asked. She'd moved into a larger apartment, finally spending some of her money on herself, but still driving that old sedan, still shopping at thrift stores. Some habits die hard. Her funeral never happened because she didn't die. But there was a memorial of sorts. 600 people showed up to a thank you event the Morrison Trust organized. Every person whose life Jessica had touched with her quiet generosity. Scholarships she'd funded. Medical bills she'd paid. Programs she'd supported. $40 million given away over 20 years, and most recipients never knew her name until that day. The local news covered it. Secret philanthropist revealed after heroic kidnapping rescue. Jessica hated the attention, but she tolerated it. said if it helped promote Beat the Clock, it was worth the embarrassment. Marco Craig was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. He'd confessed to everything: 4 murders, 1 attempted murder, 1 felony murder charge for Jessica's shooting. The families of his victims, Park, Martinez, Kim, and a 4th family named Monroe, no relation to me, all attended the sentencing. They thanked me for being the one who finally stopped him, for being the one who survived. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd gotten lucky, someone who'd had Jessica Morrison preparing in the shadows to save me. David's old case was reviewed. The conviction of Alex Craig, Marco's brother, was upheld. The evidence was legitimate. No fabrication, no misconduct. Marco had simply convinced himself of a lie because the truth was too painful. His brother was guilty. His brother died in prison for crimes he actually committed. But Marco needed someone to blame. So he'd blamed David, blamed the system, blamed innocent children. 4 children dead for a fantasy. I started Beat the Clock 3 months after Jimmy was kidnapped. Quit my teaching job, used Jessica's money to fund everything. 24-hour hotline, crisis counselors trained in ransom negotiation. Direct lines to FBI field offices in 12 states. Most importantly, emergency funding, immediate access to capital for families in crisis. We'd handled 9 cases so far. 9 families who'd called in panic when their children were taken. 9 children brought home safely, not all through ransom payment, some through rapid investigation, some through law enforcement coordination, some through creative problem-solving, but all 9 came home alive. That was 9 families who didn't have to bury their children. 9 families who didn't become statistics. The work was exhausting, emotionally draining. I took calls at 3 a.m. from parents who were living my nightmare, but it was the most meaningful thing I'd ever done. Jessica visited the office once a week, consulting role. She'd lived through this world when her father was murdered. She understood the psychology of revenge-driven kidnappers. Her insights saved lives. Jimmy came with me sometimes after school, did his homework in the reception area, met some of the families we'd helped. He was processing his trauma by watching other children get saved. His therapist said it was healthy, empowering. Last week, a billionaire's daughter was kidnapped. 6-hour deadline, $15 million demand. I called the parents within 10 minutes of them contacting our hotline. Stop liquidating assets. Stop calling your accountant. Start remembering. What's her favorite book? Her best friend's name? Her teacher. When the kidnapper tests you, and he will test you, love is the only answer that matters. The father protested. But he wants the money. 3 families before me had millions. All lost their children. I had nothing and knew everything. That's the difference. Beat the clock by knowing your child, not by counting your money. 20 minutes later, police located the girl. The father had passed the kidnapper's test, recited his daughter's favorite bedtime story word for word. The kidnapper released her unharmed. Another life saved. I checked my watch after the call ended. 8:47 a.m., 2 years to the minute since Jimmy was taken. I'd started noting that time every day, a reminder. A memorial to the worst moment of my life that became the catalyst for everything after. Jimmy walked into my office with his backpack. "Mom, Jessica's here. She brought donuts. Tell her I'll be right there." I looked at the wall behind my desk. Photos of 11 children, all rescued, all alive. Jessica's photo in the center, not from the hospital, from a school carnival 3 years ago, cotton candy, laughing before she became a hero. Before she proved that wealth means nothing compared to sacrifice. I kept one other item on my wall, framed, the wire transfer receipt, $10 million and 0 cents, J. Morrison Trust, CLEARED. 8:45 a.m. and 17 seconds. 103 seconds before deadline. That's how close we'd come to losing everything. But we didn't lose. We won. Jimmy was alive. Jessica was alive. We'd stopped Marco Craig from killing anyone else. And in the 2 years since, we'd saved 11 more children. 11 families who would never know the grief that Thomas Rivera felt, the guilt that Sofia Martinez carried, the rage that destroyed Marco Craig. That was Jessica's legacy. Not the Morrison shipping fortune, not the 40 million in donations. Her legacy was written in lives saved, in children who came home, in families that stayed whole. I walked out to the reception area. Jessica was there with coffee and donuts. Jimmy was already eating one. 8:47, Jessica said, checking her watch. "You always get quiet at 8:47. It's the time Jimmy was supposed to die. Hard to forget, but he didn't die. He's right here, eating his second donut when he knows you only allow one. Jimmy grinned guiltily. I smiled. Today he can have two. Jessica handed me coffee. New case came in this morning. Family in Boston. 4-hour deadline. $8 million. Sound familiar? Always does. What do we know? Father's a prosecutor. Kidnapper is claiming a wrongful conviction, demanding confession video and payment. My stomach tightened. That's Marco Craig's pattern. Copycat probably. Marco's case got a lot of media coverage. Someone saw the blueprint and decided to use it. Then we stop them the same way. Find the child, ignore the money. Already sent our investigator. Police are coordinating. The family's waiting for your call. I took the coffee, looked at Jimmy, at Jessica, at the photos on my wall. 2 years ago, I was a teacher with $8,000 to my name. A failed marriage, a normal life. One text message destroyed all of that, but it also revealed something I never knew. That money is worthless until you spend it on something that matters. That friendship means more than fortune. That the people with the most often give it away the quietest. Jessica Morrison taught me that, with $10 million, with a bullet she took for me, with a legacy she handed me and said, make it matter, so I did. Every day at 8:47 a.m. I remember. The clock that almost ran out. The woman who saved my son. The children we've saved since. And I pick up the phone and help another family beat their clock, because that's what heroes do. That's what Jessica did, and that's what her money was always meant for. Not donations in her name, not buildings with plaques, not recognition or awards. Lives saved, one countdown timer at a time. That's the only number that ever mattered when the clock ran out. Subscribe if you liked the story and want more like this.